Hello there, Word of Gord fans. Here we are, out in the back garden, where many plants are slowly fading into dust, returning to the earth from which they sprung so many months ago, or so few months ago, depending on one's degree of attachment to the summer. So it is such a lovely day here in southern Ontario in early November. I thought, why not do the next Word of Gord outside, where people can get a little glimpse of the garden as it fades away. Why not? I hope you're enjoying this. Let's seem a little amusing to me. So, here we are again. It's been perhaps a year, more a year and a half, since we've done one out here. And I've been thinking of doing one for quite some time, but just never quite getting to it. It's awfully hot out here in the middle of the summer. Hard to do anything, and lots of lawnmowers and whatnot. But now that we're in the late fall, we've graduated from that kind of mechanical activity, and the worst we have now is the odd leaf blower. And fortunately, I have a lot of neighbors that rake their leaves, as I do, and don't make any noise at all. So today I'm going to speak on the astral plane, what the astral plane is, what it's like to actually be there when you're out of body or when you're dead. There's that big scary word again. I notice a lot of people shrink away from me when I use that word. Or even immortality or mortality or any of those time-related terms. I have found over the years I've been engaged in this kind of work that despite an entire generation, my generation and younger ones, certainly since the 60s and 70s with the New Age movement, people will study all kinds of mystical disciplines arising from Hinduism, Buddhism, Zen, of course, Sufism, and practice meditation and study ancient texts and do all sorts of things. But yet they will not confront or are afraid to confront or try to confront and shrink away from the seeming mortality of their existence. It is astonishing to me. I've noticed this over and over again amongst people who are, shall we say, metaphysically and mystically educated, sophisticated, are still afraid of dying. And as some of you Word of Gord fans will have guessed by this point, that is one of my prime drives in this series of videos and in this incarnation of mine, is to help erase that fear of death. For really, the serious metaphysical question is not confronting your mortality, but it is in fact confronting your immortality. That is the biggie. That is the huge responsibility. That is the fun of it all. Knowing that you're never going to die, disappear, fade away. That your eternal self will always be here, in and around this planet, or in fact, other planets. It's quite easy to graduate from this one and move to others. Now, the best source of information I can use in a live video like this is my own experience. As you know, I can quote and read from many old texts, and will perhaps do so in other videos in this series, but I think the most convincing for people is to look at someone who is talking while his work is very valuable in this century, introducing many thousands of people to this world of OBEs and transcendent experiences, and certainly was a personal inspiration to me. It's more important, I think, and more convincing that I speak of my own experiences. And there are two ways of approaching this. The first would be recalling being out of body at night when I'm asleep, when the physical body is gone. Or I can contact aspects of myself. Yes, that's the best way of putting it. Aspects of this self, this Gordon here in front of you, that are actually not in this body ever. These are aspects of self that can be created. I wouldn't say always are, can be created from your higher self, your monad, your source self, to use three of the popular terms, when you take an incarnation, when you take a physical incarnation. Your higher self can actually create other versions of yourself that do not descend to the physical plane, that stay on one or other of the spirit planes, the astral, the mental, etc., etc., and have independent existences there that are not dependent on the physical plane self's needs or desires. They are, in fact, other ways of exploring as William James called it. Thank you to my friend David for reminding me of that in his Varieties of Religious Experience. William James called it the multiverse. And boy, oh boy, was he right. It is a multi-leveled universe, multi-aspect universe. Now, as you can imagine, I've prepared for this, and I am focusing now. The first plane beyond the physical, some of you may be familiar with from other sources, is the misty, gray, in-between land, space, whatever you wish to term it, the space between this world and the next, the borderland, the misty gray borderland. This is often where ghosts and entities hang out, those who are those who are afraid of moving on, either because they feel wicked, sinful, about to be punished for their misdeeds, or fearful of any number of illusory things, the wrathful deities, the gangsters that they killed themselves before dying, any number of fearful outcomes will keep them here. Also ignorance. Ignorance of the other realities will keep people as ghosts here because they have grown up in an atheist, materialist world. Their parents, their education, their lack of religion, and they think, they believe, they are certain that they know there is no other place to go. Yet they find themselves still conscious and not knowing quite what to do or what to think. Often they believe it's a bad dream, it's an endless nightmare, it's the sputtering last efforts of the brain to keep itself alive, going beyond what their favorite scientists had told them while they were still alive. And these are just some of the people encountered, the spirits found in this misty gray borderland. And I've done, a number of retrieval stories for you where I've encountered and either helped move on or failed to help move on souls in this space. And there is many, many experiences to be had there. And many souls who are engaged in this type of out-of-body activity spend many years helping souls on this level, helping them to transition, helping them to overcome their fears and ignorance as they, get to pursue what they finally realize is their eternal life and not their fourscore years and 10, is it? Or is it threescore years and 10? I seem to be forgetting. Now, I was transferring my consciousness to that misty gray area to see what I could report on as we were speaking, as I was speaking and you were listening, but I didn't come across anyone willing to communicate. There's a lot of souls there that are hunched over like this in depression, sitting rather gloomily, head in hands, looking inward in a sort of, to me it seems very much like a spoiled child taking a tantrum sort of frame of mind, self-obsessive, what about me consciousness, and it can be very hard to interrupt this and get them to look outward and talk to anyone other than themselves. So I was hoping to get one and focused for you so that we could have a little interaction, but I wasn't able to, and the interaction might not have been that interesting anyway. It might have been, what do you want? I remember, for example, trying to contact the departed soul of the writer, famous American Beat Generation writer Paul Bowles. And I found him in a sort of astral space that was rather like the North African life he had lived for many years, like a sort of pleasant valley in Morocco. That's what it struck me as. And he was in a small structure or a cave, and he was sitting quietly, and he looked up at me and said, "What do you want?" in a rather miffed sort of state of mind. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to get anywhere with him, and he didn't look that unhappy anyway. So I let him be and just moved on. And I'm sure he's picked up being an imbiber of substances. I'm sure he had many drug-infused out-of-body experiences, which would lead him to understand that we were more than just a physical. At how much deep metaphysics he picked up, I do not know, and of course I didn't find out. But just to give you one example that spurs to mind, as we wind down this initial talk on Astral Plane, existence, and of course I recognize we're just beginning here, and we will proceed with this series very soon. And I will cover over the course 3 or 4 of the areas, the major areas where we find souls resisting transition, shall we say, and those who have accepted transition and have moved on into their various heavens. So, part 2 is coming up. So long.